Welcome to the magical journey beyond mediocrity, where the mystical and the practical become aligned. You're listening to Meant for More, the Seeker's Guide to Success, with your host, Seeker's Guide and coach, Kristen Lloyd. Kristen guides you through mindset shifts to increase your consciousness and live your best life. So let's leave mediocrity behind and step into your magical, magnificent life with Kristen.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Meant for More, the Seeker's Guide to Success. I am your host and Seeker's Guide, Kristen Lloyd. I am so happy that you've all tuned in today for the show. I am so excited. I'm always excited, but I'm really excited today. This is episode 15 of the Meant for More show. And today our special guest is Adrienne Dorison. Adrienne is a friend and mentor of mine, and I'm so excited that she is on today. Adrienne Dorison is a business strategist and podcast host who helps experts, entrepreneurs, and business owners optimize their businesses to get more results in less time. She focuses on teaching people how to build profitable, sustainable businesses without compromising quality of life. Adrienne has a corporate background as a Lean Six Sigma consultant and project manager. She has developed proven systems for entrepreneurs that deliver real results fast. Adrienne has been recognized as a thought leader in the millennial entrepreneurial space. She hosts her own podcast, The School of Self-Mastery, and contributes to a myriad of media and publications such as Business Insider, Clark Howard, WSB TV, Brazen Careerist, The Huffington Post, and podcast appearances include The Art of Charm, So Money, Stacking Benjamins, and Screw the 9 to 5. She lives in St. Petersburg, Florida, with her fiancé, Bernese Mountain Dog, Church, and Irish Terrier, Airy. She competes nationally in distance triathlons and loves CrossFit and cookies. Welcome, Adrienne. That was a mouthful.
I know. I was like, that was kind of long. Maybe we could have edited that, but I'm excited to be here.
I want to tell everybody how awesome you are.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. And yes, cookies is probably the Bernese Mountain Dog, and the cookies are the most important part, right? So.
Aww. Didn't we just pass Girl Scout season? I
don't know. Those aren't my favorite. I like chocolate chip cookies, warm from the oven.
Oh my gosh. And you work it off by doing the distance triathlons.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about it so much when you work out. A couple cookies here or there. It's fine, right?
I love it. Okay. I'm going to ask you the first question that I always ask everyone, because we are meant for more. And this is the Meant for More show. And so I want everyone to hear your journey to more. What was your journey to more?
Yeah. So in terms of knowing what more was, or that I was meant for more, I think as a child, I had a really kind of disturbing childhood, to say the least. But I think we've all had, situations in our life that weren't ideal, and we deal with those. And for me, that was part of being known I was meant for more, was kind of getting through that and understanding that there was something bigger for me, that I knew I was capable of doing really big things. I just didn't always know what they were, whether it was athletics or, school. I knew I was really smart. I knew that I could, do really well there no matter what. And I wasn't naturally smart. I was kind of the growth mindset child. If you've ever read Carol Dweck's,
yes,
mindset book. I wasn't the kid who just knew that she was smart and any of that, but I worked really hard, and I knew that if I worked really hard, I was meant for more, and that there was something innately within me that I had to figure out how to unleash, in multiple different ways, because I think I've done that throughout my life in different ways, both in school, when I was in grad school and worked on a thesis, and or when I was in my athletic career, even, as a collegiate athlete, or in high school being a, state championship athlete. And then as an adult, I knew once I got to corporate, I was wow, I know that I can, it was just very inevitable for me. I knew that I could be a VP of an organization if I wanted to. I had this understanding that whatever I wanted was possible. I knew I was meant for more. And I guess the whole concept of more is what we all have to define for ourselves, right? Like, what does that mean? It could have meant staying in corporate, being that VP. It could have meant, taking an athletic career and becoming a national champion, right? Like all of those things I knew that I could do if I focused on it. And that's the same thing. Like when I left corporate, I knew that, I wasn't interested in climbing that ladder. Like that just wasn't what I wanted. I knew that my more was actually different than that. So right. What I wanted was to know that I was adding value to a company or to the world. I knew that I had skill sets that weren't really being fully utilized. I knew that my potential was greater than the current job that I had. And so I could have stayed there and it could have been more, right? But like I chose to leave because it just wasn't a good fit anymore. And values wise, it wasn't a good fit. And so now I know I'm still meant for more. And it's so funny to like have this conversation because sometimes I talk about how I think that my potential is greater than my vision. Like I know that I'm meant for more. I know that I'm fully capable of achieving that. And I think everyone out there that's listening, I think it's possible for everyone as long as we're willing to believe that, like believe that we're meant for more, believe that our potential is there, and right. Then be willing to do the work. And so I know that like my potential is there and sometimes my vision isn't that big yet. I'm like, well, I don't know what that specifically looks like. I just know that whatever I want, I'm really capable of achieving. So it's like an interesting journey to know that that's the truth in whatever you do. Because it's almost a little intimidating. Like it's a little intimidating to know like, you could do whatever you wanted. So what is it that you want, right? And that what is more for you? So helping myself kind of define what that means. And that's like a daily practice, right? Like, and I think it can change all the time because at one point what meant for more was having that corporate role. It was being that VP and that was exciting to me. And then when it no longer was exciting, that's when I shifted gears. And I think that that's important for us at every stage of our journey is to like keep tapping into what is exciting for you? And does that feel like the right meant for more path? And if not, then we get to change that and we're fully capable of doing whatever the new path is. We just have to really stay clear on it, I think.
Right. One of the things that I've come up with lately, because it's that idea of clarity. And I've started to say, clarity doesn't come in a shot. Clarity is not a one-time thing.
No.
You get clarity and then you get more clear on what you want and what you don't. And then the more clear you are on that, then you recognize if something comes out of that that's something you don't want, then you're able to say, oh yeah, let's throw that back. Let's go back to the drawing board and get even more clear on what I want. So
it's a constant evolution. I mean, we're constantly evolving as people. So I think it's only normal that we would, check back in with that clarity and gain more of it as we move forward. But I think sometimes I know that people sometimes don't do that, right? Or they get stuck on a specific goal. Like they set a goal and they're like, oh, but I set this, so I have to achieve it. And if I would have done that, then I would still be in corporate. I would still be working my way up the ladder because that was my goal at one point. And then that was the area that I thought I was meant for more in, but it wasn't the case because I checked back in with that, got more clarity on it and moved in a different direction, but fully was able to be flexible and let go of that previous goal that I set versus like being really stubborn and sticking with it, even though it wasn't the path that I really wanted anymore. And I think that traps people a lot of the time when they're like super high achievers as well, because they get so focused on like, oh, but this was the goal, so I need to follow through, but versus tapping back into that clarity.
Well, and you gave me like this image of like, because I know that there are many people that do what I call straddle goals. Like, okay, I'm going to achieve this over here on the left. So let's say that's that VP position. But now I really want to have my own business and serve the world over here. So do you see it all with your clients where they will, or maybe in corporate or any of your experiences, where people will still try to obtain that goal that they originally set out for while also trying to do the other thing, like simultaneously?
Yeah. I mean, I think that happens often, especially when people don't want to fully commit or
Right.
let go of something, right? Like letting go of the VP, even if it doesn't mean anything to you anymore, right? If that's the example we're using, even if that doesn't mean anything to you anymore, there's always going to be some fear associated with, ending that straddle and moving over and committing to the other side, right? Like committing to
Right.
that versus just kind of being interested. And that's something I talk about a lot is like there's so much power and difference in the word commitment
Yep.
versus interest.
Yep.
And really knowing that if we're committed to, and this happened for me when I was leaving my corporate job. I was still in my corporate job when I started my business, and I ran the business on the side for about 6 months. But the entire time, I was already committed to leaving the job and making the business my full-time thing. Like I made that commitment very early on. And I knew that if anything happened at the corporate job, I was going to, like, I wasn't worried about it anymore, right? Like I wasn't worried about keeping my job or whatever, because I knew that that wasn't my end goal. So I was already committed to the next thing, while still fulfilling my commitments at my role. Just because I'm a person of integrity, I'm going to, put my work in there. But I was pretty much doing just what I needed to get done there. I wasn't going above and beyond, which is very challenging for people sometimes. But when you're straddling those goals, what you're really saying is, I'm not really sure. And it's okay to not be sure. It's okay to take a period of time and kind of test both of them out and see which one feels better. But then at a certain point, you have to make a decision, like, which one do you really want? And if you want both of them, then you just have to know that your attention is going to be split, and you might not be able to reach your best potential in one of them if you're trying to divide and split that focus in both, right? So I think that that's just a sacrifice you can make. I just know that when we're trying to focus and balance all of the things, it doesn't ever really happen. And then we get disappointed when we don't fully hit the results that we wanted in one space or the other, because we're trying to focus on 4 things at one time.
Right. Right. Your podcast, The School of Self Mastery, I call it, I'm going to call it your platform, because what I see across, you have a Facebook group, you started off with the School of Self Mastery, the Society of Self Mastery. So self mastery is really important to you. But as a business coach, I'm wondering, what does self mastery mean to you, and how do you help your clients implement self mastery when it comes to business? That's 2 different questions.
Totally.
But
So let
I'm
me
trying
answer.
to-
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll talk about the first one, like why it's so important, like why self-mastery and like what it means to me, what's so important about it. Self-mastery to me is really doing our best to become the best version of ourselves. And the best version of ourselves is a combination of a few different areas, in my opinion. Like we have to be focused on our relationships. We have to be focused on our purpose, which is either your business, or if you are in a job, it's your career. Or your purpose might not even be in your career. It might be something outside of that. But like just knowing what your purpose or your calling on your life is, having a purpose. Your finances, which may or may not be separate from your purpose. Your health, your physical body. And then your spiritual practice, if it's a relationship with a higher being or a relationship with yourself type of thing. I believe that all 5 of those things have to be part of the process on a daily basis to make sure that you're like pouring into each of those areas. They don't need to be equal. So this is where like a lot of people are like, oh, like my relation, I'm working on my business, but I'm also trying to have this like work-life balance. And I'm like, I don't think that really exists, right? But we do need to make sure we're pouring minimum payments into some of those areas, even when we're hyper-focused on one. Because I think that if we solely focus on our purpose, for a period of time, and we don't pay any attention to our finances, we're going to be in trouble, and we're not going to really be able to become the best version of ourselves, which I think is, like I said, self-mastery. So like doing our best to become the best version of ourselves, and like really focusing a little bit on each of the things that do make us the best version of ourselves, whether that's our finances, our relationship, our physical body, our spirituality, or our purpose. All of those things play into it. So I really knew that that had to be like the main focus of what I talk about, because I don't want people to create this life or business that becomes a prison cell for them, or, they have this really great business, but then their relationships are destroyed. It's not in my interest to do that for people. Like, I really want people to be working on themselves, and hopefully whatever business that I'm helping them improve is making them a better version of themselves, right? Like, I can think of all the things in my life that make me a better person. Like, my fiance makes me a better person. Going to the gym or working out makes me a better person. Working on my business and working with my clients makes me a better person. Keeping track of my finances or being generous with my finances makes me a better person, as well as having a spiritual practice where I tap into myself and to a higher being, whatever it is for you, makes me a better person. But if I let any of those slide, I can feel it. I can feel it like in the way that I act, in the way that I show up for my life. And so I'm constantly tying everything we do back into that. So that's kind of what that means to me. And then the second part was how I implement that, like with my clients, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So the way that I work on this with my clients is just, it's not formal in terms of, the business strategy that we're working on, but constantly checking back in with them, making sure that the business that we are creating is helping them and the world become a better place, right? Like helping them become the best version of themselves, helping make sure that whatever they are working on is lighting them up. It's exciting to them. It's like what they know they're supposed to be doing, as well as I'm always like constantly checking in. If I see that my clients are off, I'm like, have you worked out? Right? Like, are you working out? Have you been paying into that minimum payment of your, your health category? And I'm not a health coach, so we don't like dive deep into that, but I'm constantly checking in with them, because if you're a business mentor, you know that you can't like fully separate life and business. And if I'm helping them to create a business, I want it to also be helping them to create the best version of themselves. And if they can develop the habits to do that in their business, then they can translate those habits to the rest of their life as well. And I think that's where it really firmly ties in, is that if we can, create these habits that help us, do business better, then we can create habits that help us do life better. So it's just kind of a medium to play across all the fields of their life.
Right. And how does this play into having a balanced life?
So, when I talk about like the minimum payments that we pay into each of these categories, that's what I think is an imbalanced life. But I think that that's the only way to approach life or self-mastery, because you're never going to have this balanced life. Like, it's never going to all be equal. And I think that a lot of people put this out there like, oh, like, you create this balanced life, or the six steps to creating a balanced life. And I'm like, it just doesn't exist. And so then we kind of set ourselves up for failure or disappointment when we're constantly chasing this white whale of a conversation of balance. And I see, people out there feeling like they're failing because they don't have a work-life balance, or how does everyone do it? Because my life isn't balanced. I'm like, no one else is doing it, right? Like, they're lying to you. Like, that's not what it looks like behind the scenes. And it's never what it's looked like for me. So for me, instead of living a balanced life, I've totally let that idea go. Like, it just doesn't serve me to even chase that anymore. But what feels better is knowing that I live a very imbalanced life in a very conscious and intentional way. So when I am focused on a specific area or goal, like a specific, piece of my self-mastery. So one example would be like when I was building my business, that was let's just say the bucket of my self-mastery of my life that I was pouring most of my attention and focus onto. So during that same time, I was not training for a really big triathlon, but because it wouldn't have worked out like that isn't possible for me to like hyper focus on both of those really big, important areas. Right. So instead of trying to train for a really large triathlon, which would take 3 or so hours a day, right? Like having this startup business that I was trying to like birth this baby business, which takes a lot of energy and work. And I was still in my corporate job, and I was paying off debt, and I was in a relationship. Like, instead of trying to do all of those things really well at the same time, what I'm going to do is really hyper focus on the business growth, because that was my main priority. And I'm not going to like not work out at all, or not pay attention to my fiance, or not show up for my finances. What I'm going to do is pay my minimum payments in all those other areas. So do I still go work out? Yes, that's a non-negotiable for me. But I'm not so hyper focused on that to train for a marathon or a big triathlon at the same time. Could I do that in the future? Maybe, once the business was a little bit more adult and didn't need as much of my daily nurturing attention, right? So I think paying those minimum payments in other areas. And this is when we go through seasons. Like, I think you need to go through seasons of life versus living a balanced life all the time. So that season of life, I was really hyper focused on my business growth. I had conversations with my fiance, with my family, with, you know, my coaches in triathlon, like really knowing that that wasn't going to be my main focus, but I was still going to make those things a priority in different ways. Just not as much time was going to be devoted to those things. Same thing, right? You know, if I would reverse it, I wouldn't expect that I could, do as well as I wanted to do in a triathlon if I was devoting most of my attention to my business. Like, I can't expect to win if I'm not putting the attention there, right? So I think that that's like the main thing for me, is like just living seasons of your life and knowing that like it doesn't have to be this way forever. You get to choose where you're going to intentionally focus, but you still need to pay those minimum payments in the other areas to make sure that you are living that life of becoming your best self, of being self-masterful, and really understanding what your non-negotiables are, right? Like, my non-negotiables include, working out on a daily basis, or, spending time with my fiance, or make sure I'm tracking my money, right? But I'm not necessarily spending as much time as possible, or even balanced time on all of those things. So I've kind of let that idea go, which serves me better, because I'm not chasing this white whale of a idea.
Right. And it's setting yourself up for success, because if you had split those goals, you would have spread yourself too thin, and then one of those areas would have fallen through the cracks.
Totally. And that's like what happens to a lot of people, right? Like, they try to focus on too many of those things at one time. They might be a person like me who is meant for more, right? Like you and me, we know that we're high achievers. We know we can do this. And so then we put like all this stuff on our plate, which actually is a form of self-sabotage. And we don't reach our full potential in any of them. And then we get disappointed and think we can't, or we have these like negative beliefs about what we can or cannot achieve, or what we're capable of. And it's just not true. It's that we just didn't create the intentional focus on the area that was most important, or, a priority to us at that time. And splitting your focus never helps you succeed in all of those things. Like, sure, sometimes you might be able to, but most of the time, like, you really do need to pay specific attention to the area that you want to really grow and improve, to see those improvements. I mean, it's like Olympic athletes, like they train multiple times per day. They don't have other jobs that they're like doing, because that wouldn't serve their athletic career. Like, they couldn't do that and still train the way that they train.
Right.
It's just like, we can't expect to be Olympic athletes because we don't put the time and attention into it to train. Like, but if we did spend 8 hours a day training, and 3 hours a day eating, and 12 hours a night or more sleeping, because that's what our body, we, needed it to do to perform, then we would probably get way better at athletics or whatever sport we were doing, right? It's just true. So we just have to understand, like, where is our priority, where is our focus, and enter that season of your life. Because a lot of people get like really jaded, or like scared, like, oh, but I wanted to be a marathon runner. I'm like, well, you can be, but maybe this isn't the season of your life for that. But you should still go for a run every morning. Just doesn't mean that you need to run for 3 hours every morning, right? Like that it might not be the time for that right now, but it doesn't mean you need to totally let go of that dream. It means maybe you set that up for the next season of your life and put it on the calendar so that you have something to look forward to in the next season as well.
Right, right. In terms of self-mastery, I have another really amazing question that just popped into my head because of in this industry, we hear the word hustle a lot. Mm-hmm. And so the phrases hustle and flow came to mind. So as you were building your business, and when we look at it from a perspective of self-mastery, is there this ebb and flow between hustle and flow, like the seasons that you were talking about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think to me, like when I think about, because I like the word hustle, I think I'm a hustler. I don't see it as a negative connotation, but I know that a lot of people do. And so for me, like what hustling means is like really being intentional and doing the work that needs to be done, and knowing that I'm fully capable of doing that. I'm fully capable of working hard when I need to. And the hustle doesn't feel like a struggle. Like a struggle, right? Like the hustle isn't a struggle because I'm working in that flow. Like I'm working on things that really excite me and it's almost hard to stop working on them, honestly. And the hustle just means that I'm being super intentional about it. I'm willing to put in the work. So I think that's part of the battle of a hustle, or part of the concept to me of hustling is like, you're the type of person that if something needs to get done, it's going to get done. And you're fully capable of doing that. And you're the type of person who will do that. So for me, that's like how I feel about my hustle. But my hustle is never a struggle, although I don't believe that all of this is easy. And I don't really resonate with the word ease because it's just not in my nature. Like I'm a fast talker, I'm a fast mover. Like that's just what I do. So like ease is actually one of the things that I struggle with more than hustle or flow. Like I totally believe that I'm in flow because when I'm creating in flow and when I'm hustling, it's really in flow because the stuff just kind of pours out of me in terms of content. And when I work with my clients, anything that I'm doing in my business, typically it comes from a place of flow because I'm really in touch with and like really in tune with my message and my mission and my beliefs and all of that. So it comes from flow, but I'm not afraid of doing the work and I'm not afraid of a challenge as well. Like I think that, it's not necessarily easy, the work that we do. And I didn't ever leave my corporate job to do something easier. I actually felt bored there. Like I wanted more of a challenge. I was like, why won't they challenge me more? Why won't they add more to my plate? Why won't they give me the tougher things to do? Right. And so when I started my business, like I wasn't ever afraid of challenges. I want to be challenged. And I think that most people do, but they're just afraid of it a little bit. They're afraid of that challenge, or they're afraid of what it means when something is hard. So something could be hard, but it shouldn't be, like you said, like it shouldn't be out of flow, because if it's like a struggle to get your message out there, or if it's a struggle to talk about what your mission is, or what your purpose or your calling is, or like how you're supposed to help people through this business, etc. If it's a struggle to do that, maybe you're not really in touch with what the real message is, like aligned with what you really want to talk about. Because it's never really been a struggle for me. And so when I hear people that are like, it took me like 5 hours to write this message to my audience. And I was like, it should not take you that long, right? Like it should be like flowing out of you. And so the hustle doesn't feel like a struggle. It feels like I'm the type of person, and that's like an identity thing that I have taken on that I think everyone needs to start understanding what is their identity. But I believe that I'm the type of person that will do what needs to get done to get the results that I know I'm fully capable of, to share my mission with the world, to help the people I know I'm meant to serve, to step into this type of leadership that I know I'm called to lead. And part of that is hustle, but all of it is in flow. Like it's never feels off to me. And if it does feel off, that's when I do take a step back and I'm like, what's wrong here? Right? Like, why doesn't this feel good? Like, am I sharing something that's like not really on point for me? Or am I feeling some resistance? And so I can like sit into that. And I do take like, if I need time away, I don't work 24/7 or anything. Although I think some people think I do, but I'm able to like take time away or just like sit in some silence or journal out, like, why doesn't this feel good? Or what is this resistance that I'm hitting? Like, why is this coming up for me? And that's when I can get back into flow, because otherwise you're just hitting a wall. And I think that's when it does become a struggle.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that. I definitely agree with the flow, but I'm so glad that you clarified hustle, because I know that it has a negative connotation, but, I think that hustle can also be something that's very positive,
Totally. Because I think that you have to like define what it means for you. Like, I know a lot of people don't like that word because a lot of people don't like to do hard work. And I don't mind doing hard work. I don't mind working. I actually love working. But I love working on the things I love to work on. So there's the difference for me between like hustle and struggle. And hustle doesn't need to mean struggle, in my opinion, but a lot of people think that it does, or a lot of people have a negative connotation of what it means to put in the work. Like, they don't want to put in the work, and those aren't my people. Like, I want to work with people who are lit up by what they're sharing with the world, that like they don't mind doing the work because the work feels easy. Like, the work feels like they are in flow, and they don't know what else they would do with their time if they weren't hustling on this business or this mission that they feel so called to share.
Right.
And so that's just like a difference of like who I like to work with and who I don't too.
Do you think success is teachable?
Yes. I think that success is also inevitable for anyone who is willing to first believe that it's possible for them. And then number two, take the action to get it. So like, put in the hustle, put in the work. But you have to believe that it's possible. Otherwise, you won't take that action. But success to me, I forget who originally said this, but it leaves tracks. Like, there are things that we know work, and there are things that success has shown us over years, centuries, eons of time, that if you do certain things, you will be successful. And I think that like taking the action and showing up, there is not necessarily a specific time frame and success, but success can be possible for anyone willing to pursue it. And we can teach people how to create more success by changing their habits, by changing their beliefs, by changing the action or inaction that they take. And so it's completely teachable, but it's all personally based on what success means to you. And I don't teach success in terms of this is the only way to get success and this is exactly what success looks like, right? Because success is very different for everyone, and it means something very different for everyone. And so I think that the first step is like defining what that means for you, believing that it's possible, and then taking the action to get it. And that's like a very simple breakdown. But if you do those three things, you will achieve whatever you want.
What are some things that you would say to someone who is looking for more in their life? And I'm like, I know you can't see me and our listeners can't see me, but I'm saying like
using
more in air quotes, right?
You're seeking more. Well, right. I would identify what more means, right? I would define that. Same thing with success, right? So if you're seeking success, you will never get it if you don't know what it means, because it will always escape you. It will always move. The bar will always move if you don't define what that looks like or feels like or sounds like turn it into something very visceral for yourself so that you understand when you get to it or when you can feel it or what more would even mean. Because what we tend to do is like chase this horizon that keeps moving, but then never feel like we got there, right? But there is no there. There's no there. And so I think that success and the whole concept of more needs to be personally defined, but it also, to me, needs to be personally defined as a moving target and as a feeling. So like something that you can feel now, like knowing that you are capable of more, but like when you get to more, then the bar just moves. And so you need to like, number one, be okay with that. Be okay with the fact that the bar moves, but know that you are successful now. Know that, you're already more now. And I think that, I know you had Megan Hale on here, and a lot of that comes back to the concept of being enough now, but still seeking, being okay with still seeking more, and that's something I've talked to Megan about as well. It's like, how do we embrace our enoughness now while still being okay with seeking more achievement, right? But not resting our definition or our self-worth on the achievement itself. So that's like it's a hard concept to like get into your brain sometimes, because as high achievers, we like set the bar with things. We're like, oh, once I get there, then I'll be successful. But once you get there, I'm sure it's happened to everyone listening before, you've gotten there and nothing felt different, or it felt good, but then we moved on to the next thing and now we're chasing that again as well. And so I'm of the camp where you need to believe that you are enough now, but you also are a human and we're meant to grow and evolve and seek more constantly. That's like what we thrive on, right? So like being okay with where you are now, while knowing that you are on this journey to become the best version of yourself.
Right. And that goes back to, okay, I'm enough right now. You are not your accomplishments. Mm-hmm. You are enough, like right here, right now. Yet so many people define themselves by their accomplishments. And so then they attach a feeling to that accomplishment that happens out there, far off into the distance, not in the present. So feeling that success in the present, having that knowing that you are already successful or enough in the present, I think that's what I hear. That it's not, you can, yes, accomplishing that, but that's why I think so many people look at it like a cliff, like they're going to the top and then they get there and they're like, okay, what's next?
Now where do I go?
Now where do I go?
And why don't I feel different, or why don't I feel complete now?
Right, because they've been chasing this feeling that they've put, it's like this dangling carrot.
Yeah, they could have had it all along, like they could have had that feeling throughout the entire process, which is what I want people to fully embrace. And I always tell people, like, because I work with, entrepreneurs and small business owners, like, I always constantly check back in with them. I'm like, are you having fun? Like, are you having fun? Like, is this fun for you? Because if it's not, if there is no joy in the process, if it feels like that struggle, like if the hustle feels like a struggle, then we need to stop. We need to reevaluate, because you're never going to get there and all of a sudden it's going to be fun. Or when you make X amount of money, all of a sudden it's not going to be more fun if you created a business that was never fun to begin with, and so we have to be very careful of that and making sure that we're really excited about the process. We have a mission that we're called to share because of how much it means to us. Right. Not because it's going to get us somewhere or it's going to eventually give us this certain feeling. Like, we get to choose how we feel right now. And so defining success for yourself as, yes, it can include financial security, because I think that's an important concept as a human, right? Like freedom, financial security, those are things that innately we all want. Mm-hmm. But also, like, how do you want to feel, and how can you choose to feel that way now? Because there's no there. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know if you've ever, Dan Millman, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, and then they had that movie, The Peaceful Warrior. I used to teach it, when back in my counseling days, I used to teach that or show that movie in group therapy, because so many people they look for that more. And there's this one scene in that movie where, Dan's mentor says, okay, I want to take you on this trip. I can't wait till you get to the top. He's like, when are we going to get there? When are we going to get there? When are we going to get there? And then they get up to the top and he's like, I wanted to show you this rock. And he's like, that's it? We climbed up here for a rock? And he's like, but look at this view. And I think it's a metaphor for it's about the journey, not the destination. We've all heard that. It's so cliche, but yet it's so true. It's so true. If we're not enjoying the journey, there, once you get there, the destination is a letdown because it's what you learn along the way.
Yeah. It's got to be in the journey, right? And that's why I said, like, constantly checking in with my clients, but also constantly checking in with myself, right? Like, to make sure that I am having fun, that I am feeling successful now, that I know that I am not just meant for more in the future, but that I am more right now, right? Like, I'm living that, breathing that. The leadership that I'm chasing is already mine, right? Like, I think that that's something that we wait for someone to knight us with. Right. And it's never going to happen. Like, no one's going to come knight you at some certain point.
I love that.
Maybe for like a few select people, you will be knighted eventually, but I don't expect to be knighted. And so, like, really embracing that and owning that. And that's something I'm like constantly checking back in with myself. Like, oh, when I'm a thought leader, and then I come back to it and I'm like, wait, I'm a thought leader now, right? Like, I am now, because no one's ever going to come and tell me like, oh, Adrienne's a thought leader now. Like, it's just not going to happen.
You've been knighted.
You've been knighted as a thought leader. But I have to believe that about myself now so that I can, understand that anything that I want to achieve is fully within my reach. But the achievement isn't the end goal. It's like how I feel throughout the process.
Mm-hmm. What does success mean to you personally? What is your definition of success for you?
It's so funny because I always talk about this and I always ask people this on my own podcast. And then whenever people ask it of me, I'm like, it's a deep question.
Yeah. Like screech, like the wheels are.
It. Yeah. I'm like, dang, I knew you were going to ask this, right? Like, it's the one question I get all the time because it's something I talk about all the time. And for me, my answer changes every time, which I think is a good thing, right? Because success to me evolves. Like, your definition of success should evolve, just like when I talked about in the beginning, like what it was for me to be meant for more evolved over time, and like whatever more was evolved. And so success evolves to me. But right now, success to me means, definitely different pieces of freedom, that I'm able to have. The freedom of creativity was a huge one for me. When I left my corporate job, I wanted the freedom to create what I wanted to create and share value in the ways that I felt called to share. And I couldn't do that at my corporate role. And so right now, like, that's a huge one for me. Like, that feels very successful, that I'm able to like wake up on a daily basis and create the way that I want, like with full freedom. So that like seriously feels successful. And to me, success is a feeling. It's not ever a point where I'm going to like get there. So it's like constantly checking back in with like, what does it feel like? So it feels like creative freedom. It feels like financial freedom for sure. I think that's a part of it because we can't fully focus on the creative freedom if we're always worried about finances. So definitely financial freedom feels successful. Mm-hmm. Being able to lead the people that I feel called to lead and serve in different ways through my creative message and through generosity, like all of those things feel really successful. Like to be able to choose the values that I have for my business, right? Like, so some of the values that I have are being very generous. And I'm talking a lot about like how when we earn more, we should be giving more. And that's like part of my whole business model is generosity. So that feels really successful to be able to not only give back, but also to lead other people in the idea and the concept of generosity and how good businesses do good. And so that's something that feels really successful for me right now. And like just the choice to be happy, I think, on a daily basis. Like, I really love what I do, and that stems from that creative autonomy. So all of that feels successful, like the creativity, to be able to really tap into my values on a daily basis and work from that strong value system, that feels really successful. Financial freedom, freedom to have really successful relationships, and the choices that I have on a daily basis on how I feel. And I don't always feel happy, but I always know that I have the choice of what I'm doing and where my life is going and how I want to feel. And that feels really successful. Yeah. So that's like a really roundabout answer, but
no, it's good. What is your process for checking in? And so for many of our listeners who may be like, okay, so she checks in a lot and so she feels the success. And, what is your process, or what is a process that you could suggest to other people? Like you talked about journaling, but what is your go-to strategy or practice or habit that you implement daily or weekly to do these check-ins, when it comes to self-mastery or the success, so that you are where you want to be?
Mm-hmm. So I have a few things that I do on a consistent basis that I would say would classify as like the checking in that people can do in different ways. So some of those things are related to goal setting and being focused. So like every Sunday, I focus on setting intentions for the week. So I get really, intentional with what do I want to accomplish this week and how do I want to feel this week? So not just the tangibles of like, here's what I'm going to be doing, right? Like robotic, but still doing those too, because it's important to identify not just what you're going to get intentional about, but what you're actually going to do and execute on, because intention has no value. Execution does, right? Like you are not more than you do. So setting the intentions are great. And that gets me focused for the week, but also being intentional with how I want to feel. So if I want to feel productive, or if I want to feel generous, or if I want to feel, of value, whatever it is, making sure that I understand what I'm being intentional about on a feeling basis, as well as on a very, tangible, like here's I always select what I call a sprint goal. So the thing that I'm going to really hyper focus on for the week. And if nothing else gets done, that's the one thing that has to get done. So I get really, focused on that on Sunday nights. And then every day I set what I call my most important mission, because I think we all run with really long to-do lists. Like we all have a never-ending to-do lists, and news flash is that to-do list is never going to go away as long as we're living and breathing, because things will constantly be added to it. And so instead of focusing on like how long and overwhelming that to-do list is, I take one like major thing from that to-do list and I identify it as a priority, my most important mission, which helps me become a better decision maker each day. Like, what is it today that is my most important mission? Like the one thing that needs to get done. If nothing else gets done today, this has to get done. And I identify that every single day, which moves me forward towards my sprint goals and to the bigger goals that I set over a 90-day period. So those are all really important to me and help me become the person that I want to be without feeling like at the end of the day disappointed that I didn't finish my to-do list, because the truth is, like, none of us finish our to-do list. Like that's the whole point, right? Like it's a never-ending list. Right. So I finished that most important mission because life happens, right? I work with a lot of clients who have kids, or they have other jobs potentially, or, we're in business. So sometimes things come up and you're not going to be able to get the 5 things done that you really planned on spending 8 hours on today. You might have 1 hour. And so be able to identify what that most important mission is and get it done. And I do what's called a power hour, is like really for that hour, like nothing else happens besides that most important mission. And I suggest people do it in the morning, just because by the end of the day, sometimes we're spent, sometimes we don't get to it, etc. And it's also like a black cloud hanging over our head all day if we wait till the end. Right. But sometimes the power hour is at night, but for the most part, I try to do that in the morning. And so part of my dailies, like my non-negotiables, are things like working out, because that is one of the things, like if I don't work out, or even, it doesn't have to be like a hardcore workout. It could be like a small jog or a long walk with the dogs, whatever. Because some days that's what my body needs, but like really being able to at least do that thing, I know that I feel better, because I notice on the days that I don't do that, I feel off. Like I don't feel as good. I don't feel as productive. And so I make that a non-negotiable for myself. So identifying for yourself, like what are your non-negotiables, right? Same thing, like non-negotiables with spending time with my fiance, even if it's just like 30 minutes in the evening, or maybe it's an hour where we watch Game of Thrones or whatever. Like I see him every single day, and we take that time together, whether it's a walk with the dogs, or maybe it's like a 3-hour date. You never know, right? It's going to be different, but at least making that a non-negotiable, as well as, like I said, like the journaling. So that's another way that I can just, sometimes my journaling is just like bullet points of things that are coming to my mind. And sometimes it's like really working through some resistance, or just, writing the prompt for myself, like, how do you feel? And then tapping into like, how do I feel today? Not just on a surfacey level, but like, how do you really feel? Like, how are you really doing? Right. And like going through some of that, because that will keep me on track for being in that flow and really talking about what I know I need to talk about to my audience, or, putting a halt on a project if it doesn't feel good anymore, or whatever that may be. If I don't take the silent time to write about that, or even, it doesn't even need to be a journaling exercise. It could be something that I do on a walk. I could be like, how do you really feel today, Adrienne? Right. Like, and asking myself those questions, and kind of digging deeper. So it's like I do work with my own coaches to help me with some of that stuff, but then being able to self-correct is super important as well. So that's something that I constantly try to like coach myself through sometimes.
Right. And I don't think I've asked anybody else this question before, but because we're talking about self-mastery, I think that this would really benefit those entrepreneurs and non-entrepreneurs alike, because this is something that always comes up. So as the self-mastery queen, and I'm proclaiming you the self-mastery queen.
Thank you.
As
you just knighted me, right?
I love it. You have been crowned. I've knighted you. How did you, before getting help, right? Because I think at some level in everyone's business, whether it's a VA or an OBM, and for people who don't know what that is, a virtual assistant, online business manager, before you got help, how did you push through or get through the less desirable tasks and activities? How did you get through that mentally and emotionally? Because that's kind of what I work on with a lot of my clients is the I don't wannas, or the it's uncomfortable. And how do you work through that and past that, because it's part of the bigger picture?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's, some of this, I mean, I think we all experience this, right? Like, I don't want to do this, but I know that like for me, the end goal, like the result I wanted was stronger than my negativity or my, poutiness or excuses of why I didn't want to do that techie thing, or why I didn't want to sit there and deal with, tech challenges for 2.5 hours. Like, no one wants to do that, right? But not everyone is going to achieve the things that they want to achieve because they're not willing to do the things that are required sometimes. And so I know that I'm the type of person. So this all comes back to like really checking in with your self-mastery identity. Like, what type of person are you, right? Like, are you the type of person that is going to do what it takes to get this thing done, to get the results that you want, and knowing that you won't always have to be the person responsible for some of these more annoying or smaller or tech tasks that you hate doing. But that, sometimes there's a certain period of time where we are responsible for all the things in our business. And I just knew that I had a bigger vision. So you have to keep your eye on that vision. You have to keep focused on like, what is it that you really want? Why are you spending 2.5 hours on this tech problem, or this, setting up something on your website that's like really not your zone of genius? Can you outsource it? Sure. But like at a certain point, I didn't know that was an option, or I didn't have the financial means to do that. And so I just kind of, maybe this is a poor answer, but like I suck it up because I'm the type of person that wants the results. And I know that not everything is going to be fun or convenient along the way, but I'm willing to put in the work. I'm willing to work through the challenges because I know that my mission is really important. And I know that I am meant for more, right? That my success is inevitable if I'm willing to do the work. And so I have to be willing to do the work. And no one deserves, the right to complain or make excuses about why it's not possible for them. Like we all have challenges, right? So being the person who steps up, does the work, puts the effort in, and, you can check in with yourself on those things. Why am I like making this miserable for myself? If I'm working on something that's pretty miserable, but it's monotonous, maybe I can put on Game of Thrones while I do it, right? Like giving yourself some rewards at the end. Like as soon as I finish this, I am, going on a long walk with my dogs in the park because that's what I enjoy doing, or whatever it is that you enjoy doing. And I do that, right? Like give yourself rewards because that encourages your brain to keep going and to move through some of the negative pieces that are going to get you to where you want to go. So you have to stay focused on the vision, and then you can play mind tricks on yourself too. So those are like the two things that I always stayed focused on. And I never, felt like it wasn't worth it, to get through some of those harder times. I knew it would be worth it if I just stuck with it.
Right.
And now I don't do some of those things, which is great,
Right. And that's why I phrased it the way I did, because you're like, oh yeah, been there. And
I still have to go there sometimes, right? Like I still have days where like I'm the person responsible for something, and I try to take most of those things off my plate, but like sometimes it happens. But I know that like I have an end goal, and if this is part of one of the projects that needs to get done to get to that end goal, then I'm going to do it, right? I've never felt, even in my corporate job, like I was never above any task, right? Like if they needed to clean the bathroom, I would clean the bathroom, right? Because that's part of what they needed me to do that day. I'm a huge team player. And so I think I needed to, I think we all need to be team players for ourselves, even when we don't have a team yet, right? So like, be a team player. Don't let any work be below you or beneath you. But of course, you want to get to a point where you're only focused on the things that only you can do. But that doesn't happen on day one.
It's so funny. I started to think of that meme, or I don't know if it was part of a movie, like, just do it. Just do it. like, get it done. I mean, because at the end of the day, and I will sometimes, for me, if I'm in a low point, like I will listen to YouTube videos, and some of those guys are like, just do it.
And that's stuff that like works, right? Like that works on our mind. Yeah. Like that's why we know places like Amazon and Google and Apple, like they have these like really fun, playful workspaces because they know that increases productivity. It encourages people to do work. It's a reward center for our brains. And so as entrepreneurs, we're in this space sometimes where we're at home, we're working, there's no people around us, we're behind our computer. The temptations to watch Netflix are upon us, or take a nap or whatever. And so we don't have ideal working conditions for productivity. And so we need to look at what has been done and researched and know that like watching a cat video actually does increase your productivity because it's like tapping into that reward center of your brain. And it's okay to play, right? Like it's okay to play in business, and it's okay to work really hard on a task and then reward yourself with something. And that's actually going to make you more productive in the long haul anyways.
As long as you have the boundaries to stop watching the cat videos.
Yes. Watch one cat video or watch 5 minutes of cat videos and then move on. And then do another hour of work and then watch more cat videos. But that will, honestly, it's like scientifically proven that like your brain will work harder during that hour. It will be more productive if it knows at the end it's going to get a cat video.
Right.
So give it a cat video, right?
So give it a cat video, right? And just do it. I'm so glad that you came on today. I would love for everybody to know where they can find you. I just naturally assume everybody knows where you are anyway, but
they might not.
Because I'm a fan. So Where can people find you? And can people still join the Society of Self-Mastery, which is your Facebook group? And then where, tell us where we can find you.
Yes. So they can go to adriendorison.com. There's links on there there's tons of freebies on the website if you need any help or free, resources in terms of growing your business. There's stuff on there for that. So definitely check out the website, which the podcast is also linked up on the website. Just go to adriendorison.com, as well as the Society of Self-Mastery is my free Facebook community. And you can go to adriendorison.com/community, and that'll lead you right to the community. I would love to have you. It's a super active and supportive space where we're all working on becoming the best version of ourselves. So thank you so much for having me. And I hope this was helpful for everyone out there wanting to become more.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you again for being on. It has been a blessing, and I'm so grateful that you said yes.
Yes, of course.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. It's been another great show. To continue the conversation, hop on over to the Seekers group on Facebook, www.facebook.com/groups/The Seekers Path. Until next time, you are meant for more, and keep on seeking.
Thanks for tuning in to Meant for More, the Seeker's Guide to Success. But the fun doesn't end here. Head over to KristenLloyd.com for your Seeker's Guide workbook filled with exercises to help you go from mediocre to magically magnificent.